Hello, the learning target for this screencast is I can find the velocity of a moving object and represent it both graphically and with vectors. Our vocabulary terms that go along with this target are velocity, vector, and then velocity time graph. While you watch, please take some notes about this target in your science notebook so that you can refer to them and review them at a later time. First thing we're going to talk about is velocity. Velocity is speed in a direction. It's also a vector, and you'll see some examples here of vectors representing velocities. If you say you are walking east at a speed of 3 meters per second, you are describing your velocity. A person walking north with a speed of 3 meters per second would have the same speed as you do, but not the same velocity. And the reason for that being that you're going different directions from one another. So the speeds are the same, but the velocity is different because the directions are different. As I said before, velocity is an example of a vector. A vector is a quantity that has both size and direction. Speed is not a vector because speed is a measure of how fast or slow an object moves and not which direction it moves in. So you can see here we've got three vectors that are representing velocity. They're the green arrows and they're showing both size and direction. So we can see right here that the top green arrow is the biggest, and so we can say that this one has the greatest velocity and it's heading in this direction. This is the smallest vector for velocity. See, the size is much smaller, so we know that the velocity is less, but it's still going in the same direction as this vector above. And then below we've got another vector, which is the second fastest vector, and we know it's going in the opposite direction as the other two. So these vectors show velocities of different magnitude. Next, we can represent these things on graphs. And so you'll see here, we've got a little animation where we've got our time and then our distance versus time. And so as you look through, you can see that's 80 kilometers covered in 50 minutes and starts its journey down here. And we can see that we've got our distance covered in a certain amount of time. Later on, when we're doing some calculating and some data gathering, you'll be able to create your own velocity time graphs for some practice. We've got two animated pictures here. We've got a little sloth on this side and a courageous skydiver on that side. In your notebooks right now, I want you to compare the velocity of these two objects. And I'd like you in words to do that, but then also try to use some vectors to explain what's going on with the velocities in this animation compared to this one. And then finally, our last step today is I want you in your science notebook to create a four-square diagram for our target vocabulary. The vocabulary is right down here. You're going to do one four-square diagram for velocity, one for vector, and one for velocity and time graph. So you're going to do three separate diagrams. And you can see here how you set it up in your notebook. We've got our word in the middle, a definition in your own words, then facts, characteristics, and images, some examples of that word, and then some non-examples or what that word is not. And as always, be sure to use some color as you're completing your work. Once you finish your work, check it in with me, and then I'll help you move on to your next step. You can use the internet, you can use a textbook, and you can get some help from me if you need it. That's all. Thanks. Have a good day.